Here, in these cold Arctic waters, swim bowhead whales that have been alive since before Canada became a country. These giants are some of the largest living creatures on the planet, and they're on the front lines of climate change because their food sources, microscopic animals called zooplankton, are some of the smallest, most vulnerable creatures around. Researchers have been coming to Kingnate Fjord in Canada's Baffin Island for years to find out how this bowhead whale population is adapting to climate change. But this year, when they arrive, the whales aren't there. Are the whales seeking out greener pastures, or has something else got them on the move? Join us as we crack the code on nature and unlock mysteries in The Nature Files.
So today we're out in Kingnate Fjord, which is about a 45-minute boat ride from Tangnartung. And we're here because in the past they have found a lot of bowhead whales here. This year we don't seem to find as many in this fjord. They seem to be kind of gathering in the next fjord up. So we're here today specifically to try and see if we can figure out why they may have moved.
One idea is that the whales moved because they found more zooplankton in another fjord. To figure out if that's the reason behind their move, this cage of instrumentation will be deployed all along the fjord to find out exactly what the food situation is like here, and if it's changed from past years. Among its payload is an underwater vision profiler that takes pictures at various depths so that researchers can see the zooplankton in the water, as well as a CTD, which will tell us things like water temperature and other conditions that the zooplankton are dealing with. And last but not least, an environmental DNA, or eDNA sampler.
So the eDNA sampler is a new tool that we're using in environmental monitoring, and it kind of turns us into forensic scientists out here. We're looking for DNA from the whales, from their skin or their poop, and even if we can't see them, we can find out if they're here.
You heard that right. We learn a lot from whales by what comes out of their behinds. By gathering eDNA samples of their poo, researchers get a reading for all different living creatures that are in the whale's diet. Using their eyes in the sky, a drone, the researchers can see when a whale goes number 2, and then it's a race to get the sample before it dissipates. And it's not just whale poop we're targeting with the eDNA sampler. There's another clue we can follow to find out what the whales are eating.
As well as carrying out a systematic survey of the whole fjord, what we're really interested in doing is getting samples of prey where we know that the whales are feeding. So one of the things we can do is go and find where the whales are and watch for what they call high fluking dives, which is when we see them dive down and the fluke comes right up out of the water. It's really indicative that they're going down to feed. And then they leave on the surface of the water as they swim what we call fluke prints.
The team's boat driver, Ricky Killerbuck, is a pro at spotting fluke prints and navigating to the whales. As our local eyes in the area, helping with the sampling year-round, he's made some interesting observations.
Since the killer whales started showing up in Cumberland Sound, the whales have moved to shallow waters and smaller fjords now.
As the sea ice cover retreats northward due to climate change, killer whales who aren't adapted to an Arctic environment have been able to expand further and further each year. Could it be that the bowheads aren't so much swimming to something as they are swimming away from something else?
So it could be there's not more animals where they're eating, it's just a trade-off between their own risk of being predated on by their predators and the amount of food that they can get where they feel safe or safer. So it's possible that these whales are actually sacrificing some of their food to get away from the orca.
Researchers are sampling the water along transect lines in Kingnate Fjord, where the whales have been in past years, as well as this smaller fjord where they've moved to this year to find out what's going on.
So right now the eDNA sampler is down there on the cage, just above 40 meters depth, and it's going to be sucking water in, putting it through a filter.
The team of researchers are hard at work for weeks, collecting samples they hope will solve the mystery of what's going on here. But answers aren't immediately obvious. They'll need to process the sample and other data first.
So after we're done on the boat, we take this little top part here that has the handle, we'll pull that off and unscrew the knobs, get the filter out, put it in a little tube, And then we add a bunch of chemicals and heat it up and centrifuge it down, and that's how we get the DNA.
Head researcher of this project, Sarah Fortune, says finding out what species of zooplankton the whales are eating can indicate what changing conditions the whales are up against.
So for example, the food that bowhead whales rely on are these large-bodied, energy-rich, like really fat, juicy Arctic zooplankton. And these organisms do really well in cold Arctic environments. But as the ocean begins to warm, then there's a shift and we have these smaller bodied, lower energy, temperate zooplankton that are creeping their way into the Arctic. And so we might see things like skinnier whales in the Arctic, or fewer adult females that are having calves, or longer times between calving events.
Preliminary results from the Echo sounder show that the zooplankton in Kingnate Fjord are a lot deeper than in the much smaller fjord the whales have moved to. This might suggest the whales have moved to the smaller fjord because it takes less energy to dive for their food there. But before any conclusions can be drawn, the team needs their eDNA results to find out what type of zooplankton, the fatty high energy or low energy species, are in each fjord, and how much biomass is in each fjord too. So after the sampling is all done, the eDNA samples are sent to a lab at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia to be extracted, amplified and sequenced.
The environmental DNA is a little bit like dandruffs, you know? So like when the animals, when they swim around, then they shed some cells, and then that's what we collect using the filtration system.
Julie has been working hard to extract and amplify the DNA samples so they can be sequenced. The bits of eDNA they acquire are compared to other genetic fingerprints, just like running fingerprints through a police database.
And this is the band here that we are interested in.
The team's preliminary eDNA results find something interesting. There's a higher abundance of the biggest, most energy-packed copepod in the new fjord. This suggests the whales might be drawn to this area for its high-energy food. Thanks to eDNA, these early findings can shed some light on the whales' behavior and give us valuable insights into why they seem to be moving away from their historic feeding grounds. However, as with all good science, the team wants to carry out more research and collect more data to fully solve the mystery of the wayward whales. So, shall we crack open our next case file? Next week on the Nature Files, we'll explore the case of the spawning sockeye and find out how a community is using eDNA to restore a vulnerable salmon population.